2 minutes. Jim's out there in the weeds and Bert's just tuned in, I see.
I'm here.
Okay, Bert's online. Okay, we're gonna call to order the Lindale County Public Works Committee meeting. It's February 16th, 2021. Presence myself, Dave Tassoni, Kevin McCarthy, Bert Gurl, David Kelly, Jim Webster, Angela Fellers. We have Carlos Molina from the Highway Department. We have our administrator, Mr. Thompson. We have John Gilberti from the State's Attorney's Office. We have the Chairman Shirelli who's tuned in, and I see we have a public speaker, so to speak, Mr. Mick Goldlock, if that's correct, Goldrick.
Yep.
So with that, I would first ask for approval of the minutes from January 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Fellers, seconded by Mr. Gurl. Is there any questions, comments, corrections, deletions on that item? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And like I say, somewhat maybe not necessarily public comment, but we'll treat it as public comment. And with Mr. Goldrick here in attendance, I'll read the disclaimer for our public participation. And it says, at this time, we invite the public to address the Public Works Committee with issues and concerns. We ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. A maximum of 5 speakers will be heard on a first come, first served basis. With sign up at the meeting. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the zoning committee, zoning board of appeals, or the county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be addressed in the open session, and an individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic in a statement on what is perpetrated to be a different topic. After acknowledgement by the chair, please state your name, and thank you for your cooperation. And just to say, in lieu of, like I say, with the topic you're here to speak of, we'll forego the 3 minutes and allow you necessary time to get your point across. And I would just first ask you to state your name for the record and tell us what your business is about. Mr.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Well, my name's Terry McGoldrick. I guess am I going first? I didn't, sorry. I didn't
Yes, sir. You're the only one I see on the screen here, unless
okay,
someone else shows up.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I lifelong resident. I live out in the county. I lived southwest of the airport. Well, I lived here my whole life. So just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what the current status is of the Byron Nuclear Plant. As you guys are aware of, we're trying to get some legislation passed. Exelon made the closure announcement of both Byron and Dresden. So we went through this 4 years ago with Quad Cities and Clinton. The company said that they were not making any money. That's being investigated by the governor's office. They're actually doing an audit of their books to see if they truly are not losing money. What I can tell you is that that's absolutely going to happen. If we don't get legislation passed by the end of May, they will close the plant because they're not going to order fuel for the full outage. So I've worked there 36 years. I was a lineman for ComEd, and I became involved in the union. I've been working for the union for 20 years. And made it to president, business manager, financial secretary. So pretty close to home for me because I literally, Byron is my community. I live and have a Rockford address, but our kids went to Stillman School District. So it's pretty important for us here. We've had tours of legislators there. We've had Speaker of the House. We've had Representative Vellum, Representative West, the mayor. We're setting one up. We're continuing to do them. We've had Steve Solomon was there. Brian Stewart, Chesney, Demmer. I mean, you just about, everybody in the area has been on a tour. Just kind of let them see for their own eyes what's all involved. I think hopefully this is an eye opener here with the weather that we've had here. If you guys have been paying attention on what's going on in Texas, they rely heavily on wind and gas plants. So the gas had to be diverted to residential homes. Gas or the wind towers just don't run in this kind of weather. The amount of load that was on the system from just the wind farms here in the state of Illinois was about 13 megawatts, and it dropped to zero last Tuesday. They locked down because of the weather. They can't run in that cold of weather. So we're just trying to tell everybody, listen, anytime you get reliant on one particular source, don't care if it's a grocery store or a gas station, you're going to end up in trouble at some point. Nuclear is extremely clean. It's very reliable. It's the most reliable source there is for generation. They run at about a 96.8 factor, and it would be higher if they didn't count the time that they shut them down for the refueling outage. There's about 700 people that work there full time every day. During the nuclear outages, it can go up to 12 to 1,500 people. That involves all of the building trades. So plumbers and pipe fitters and electricians and carpenters, you name it, they're out there for the outages. So I'm trying to get legislators to understand that not only is it a significant asset for the state of Illinois, because if we truly don't get something passed, it's a matter of time, we will not have a nuclear facility in this state. And I keep reminding them we're not living here because of the wonderful weather, the 10,000 lakes we have. Reliable, cheap energy is a good reason to live here, right? So I think we should treat them as an asset. We propose I've been dealing with the AFL, a CIO, and also the governor's office. We presented a proposal for them to take a look at a concept and trying to get, we got to put some devil to the details, so to speak, but we're just looking for some legislation to get passed to keep those plants open. I could go on and on and on. If you guys, I'd like to leave you guys with a couple of questions if you have any. It would completely devastate the area. I mean, there's a lot of people at first. It's like, well, yeah, it revolves around Winnebago, Stillman, Oregon, and Byron. Well, there's a lot of people that work at the plant that live in Rockford, and clearly a lot of those folks that work at the plants shop in Rockford. During the nuclear outages, they all stay at hotels in Rockford. So it is a significant economic engine for this area. They also pay $38 million in property taxes. Interesting fact for you guys, it is the highest taxpayer in the state of Illinois. In all of Illinois, they pay more taxes than any one thing, even the Sears Tower, or what, I don't even know what the name of it. I'm dating myself. The old Sears Tower, I don't know what they call it now, but actually it's pays more than Disneyland in California. So a significant economic engine for this area, and it would be devastating to the area if it closes. So I just want to reach out to you guys, kind of let you be aware of it. If you guys had any questions or, any thoughts or any questions at all, I could probably answer them. If not, I could certainly get you an answer.
I'd like to start off that Q&A a little bit if I could. Mr.
Sure.
McGoldrick, what is your sentiment on how this is going? I mean, it seems like you're in the mix of it all and much informed more than we are. But is there a possibility or a hope? Do you see it going in a positive direction, or is it going downhill?
Well, the more people we get included in this and talk to it. I've personally talked to about 85 legislators on Zoom calls. We've had upwards of 35 of them visit the plants. We're continuing to do so. We're having a tour this week down at Clinton, which is not my jurisdiction. I represent every one of the plants except for that plant, but we're trying to get local legislators down there interested in it as well. But so, here's the issue that people have, and you guys might have the same view. And quite honestly, sometimes I have the same view. Exelon and ComEd, we all think of, well, they make a lot of money, right? And they do. But they also operate in 48 states. They own 4 major utilities. Every one of these nuclear facilities runs independent of each of the others. So Byron stands on its own financially. Dresden stands on its own. The current license for the NRC is good for another, I think, 17 years. So there is no reason for that plant to close. As a matter of fact, the NRC rated it the top running nuclear facility in the United States. So people can't get past the fact that Exelon, they hate Exelon. And, some people aren't real happy with ComEd. And you guys are fully aware of the scandal that happened there, and they admitted bribery or they paid a $200 million fine. Those people have all left the company. They were forced out. So I say that to say this, that you can be upset with Exelon and ComEd all you want, but you got to take a look at the 700 jobs that are there and the economic engine and all the economics that it brings to this area. That's what I'm trying to get people to focus on. You know, our guys, keep in mind, we did this through a pandemic. We had 2 nuclear outages. So imagine 1,200 strangers walking through your front door every day during the pandemic to do the nuclear outage. So we're opening people's eyes to it, I guess, to answer your question. But do I feel 100% confident? I don't. That's why it's important for us to reach out to anybody and everybody we can. I know Representative Vella just did a really nice job putting out a press conference. I know the mayor, McNamara, just had a bunch of village presidents and other mayors in the surrounding areas sign on to a letter that was very well written. So, you know, I think we're bringing attention to people, but I don't think they get it. I think, you know, everybody's in love with wind and solar, and I get it. Someday we're going to get there. Technology just isn't quite there yet. We can't store the electricity. So, you know, nuclear has got to be a piece of the energy policy moving forward.
All right, I'd open it up to anybody, if I could, anybody, any other committee members that would like to ask a question or got any thoughts? Chairman or either Chairman Shirley or Mr. Thompson, anybody out there that has any thoughts or questions or comments on this item?
Kevin's waving at you.
Kevin's waiting for you.
Yeah,
Okay, oh, Mr. McCarthy, go ahead.
there we go. Yeah, we'll go ahead and pop in here. And thanks, Mr. Goldberg, for being
Yeah,
here.
Terry. Hey, just call me Terry.
Terry, thank you. And
I'm a Rockford guy, Terry. Thank you.
through Angela, and we appreciate that. And as we always are here on the county board here and what's happening, maybe you could just sort of educate us again on why they want to shut down the plant. I've already spoken with a number of people that do work there. They live in my district. And, you know, they are a viable resource without a doubt. So maybe you could just clarify with us what's the deal, why they want to shut this down, because you mentioned there's a 17 years that they still have with the NRC. So maybe you could just pick it up from there. And
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a little confusing, but the United States is divided into multiple zones. There's a MISO market and there's a PJM market. So that when every 3 years, PJM has an auction of electricity. So all of these generation companies have to say, I can generate 2,000 megawatts, I can generate 500 megawatts, whatever that is. And then the market actually says, well, we're going to need 20,000 megawatts. So people bid into this auction. The issue is it's not a level playing field for like fossil plants or nuclear plants because wind and solar is being subsidized by the federal government. So say, and I don't know the numbers, I'll just throw some numbers out there. Say Byron bids in at $25 a megawatt hour. The wind farms out here can bid in at $0 because they're getting $24 a megawatt hour from the federal government. And that's a sad deal. And the fossil plants, we also represent. So my local represents about 6,000 members. We represent, like Angela said, all of the ComEd people, all of the 5 out of the 6 nuclear plants. Well, I also represent 4 fossil plants and a gas plant. So our jurisdiction goes down as far as south of Springfield, and then of course all the way to Indiana, Iowa, and then up to Wisconsin. So fossil plants are being subsidized to sit there and sit idle and run if they need you. So in other words, you could bid in and say, hey, I could supply you 500 megawatts. And if I do that, I'm going to make a lot of money. Like, I don't know if you guys have paid attention or seen here lately, but people are bidding in down in Texas for $9,000 a megawatt hour the last couple of days because the need is so great for generation. They just can't get it. So the price has just went skyrocketing. The good thing about that is these fossil plants are sitting there on standby, and they can actually fire up a fossil plant in about 8 to 12 hours. But when they say I can supply 500 megawatts to you, if they don't supply that 500 megawatts when called upon, there's a very significant fine that goes along with that. And they can ramp those up and ramp them down. Nuclear plants, they can't ramp them up and ramp them down. Once they're up and running, they run for 18 months until the next nuclear outage. So what we're saying is they're just not a level playing field. So if we're not careful, this is really important for us to get across, is that if Illinois doesn't think about what an asset this is, we're going to end up closing 6 nuclear plants, and we're going to end up purchasing power from outside of our state. Again, with the financial issues that Illinois has, how does that make sense to anybody from purchase power from, Wyoming or Kansas or Iowa or Missouri, or South Dakota, where there's a lot of wind farms? You guys will notice if you drive down 39 down towards Dixon, there's about 170 wind farms there. There's 8 employees that run all of those wind farms. So, we're just saying, if you can't have everybody bid into an auction if somebody's getting a subsidy from the federal government. It's not a level playing field at all. So that's the reason why when Byron say bid into the auction, all of their generation wasn't accepted into the auction. So they're selling sometimes on a negative market. They have to generate electricity, and they're putting their power onto the grid, and they're actually losing money, but they have to put it onto the grid. So it's a little confusing, where the MISO market bids every year, PJM market bids every 3 years. So you're bidding what you think your costs are going to be 3 years out from now. So that's part of the reason why they're losing money.
So if this plant does get shut down, is there any way to open it back up again?
Only if they shutter the plant, if they give the license back to the NRC, which they typically do. So what happens is they have to pay money towards a decommissioning fund. And once they turn over that, all this money sitting there, because every nuclear plant in the United States has to pay into a decommissioning fund. So that's money that's set aside whenever they shut the plants down. That's the money that they can then utilize to make it safe and put it into a safe storage. So that once they turn over the license, it's done. They can't get it. It's done and over. They can't start it back up again. So that's the whole key for us is what we're trying to tell the legislators is there's got to be an economic bridge that gets us across for a short time until maybe we can get either a federal rule, which would take care of this problem forever, or state of Illinois recognizes that these nuclear plants are a true asset. And, just make sure what we're proposing is they don't make a ton of money, but they got to get their costs back, right? I mean, they can't sit there and lose money. They're just not going to do that. Exxon will take their money and invest in some other utilities. They have 3 of them out east right now, out in Pico, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. and Atlantic City, besides Chicago.
Okay, Terry, I think you gave us, I think you've answered what I was looking for. So thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I can certainly give you my phone number. Like I said, I'm a local guy. If you guys have any other questions, or I could, get you some more details if you need some, or speak again. I've been about everywhere, believe it or not. I've been to the Byron City Council meeting. I've been to the Ogle County Board meeting. I've been about everywhere. This is very important.
Mr. McGoldrick, could you tell me, I don't know, I'm assuming it may be somewhat of a misconception, but in the stories that I've heard, if out of the power that's generated at the Byron Nuclear Station, how much of that power percentage-wise is utilized in this region? I mean, is that power shipped out east or west and we're getting power from somewhere else? Or how much, like in my household here in Northern Rockford, am I being supplied by power generated out of the Byron Nuclear Plant?
Well, that's an excellent question, because a lot of people there's a lot of people say, well, I only want clean power, right? Well, nuclear is clean power, but they think they only want wind power. That electricity is put out onto the grid, the transmission grid, and wherever it goes, it goes. So, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that Winnebago, the Grand Prairie Gateway project that we just did a couple of years ago for ComEd, built that new transmission line, 345,000 volt line. The problem is that nobody wants to control the grid, right? They need power on the East Coast, but there's no way of getting it there. The federal government really needs to take over the actual grid, which is the transmission lines, what you see on the sides of highways and such. So yes, you are getting power from there. And then they feed about 2.3 million homes out of that Byron. And here's, if I could just add one more thing, I don't know if you, I just seen it on the news last night that Dixon is proposing a very significant solar farm. It's like 7,700 acres. Well, I can tell you that, to put that into comparison, there's one going on right now southeast of Joliet. It's 2,500 acres and it generates 250 megawatts, 4 employees. Byron Nuclear Facility puts out 2,380 megawatts, takes up a footprint of 25 acres and employs 700 employees there every single day. And it runs regardless of the weather. That's the thing I want people to understand is it's a great idea to have wind and solar, but if the sun ain't shining, so we're not getting any juice off of solar. And right now they're covered with snow. And when the wind gets, or when the temperature gets 0 to 5 below, they physically have to lock down all the wind towers because the gears in them grind and they have to lock them up. So they're not producing any electricity. So we all have to think about that, right? I mean, it's pretty common sense to me, but I've been in the industry for 36 years. So I think it's just a matter of, I think to answer your question also is just, we're just trying to educate people.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of questions about it. People really don't understand it and they don't have to. They expect you go flip the switch on, they want their lights to come on, right? At the end of the day, that's all they care about, electricity. Well, how much their bill is and the lights come on when they want them on.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think for myself and a lot of others, I mean, reliable energy stands out from other energy that may not be reliable. I see Mr. Girl with his hand up, and I'd just like to say, a lot of the pictures on my screen are frozen. So if anybody's out there and has a question, or just speak up and we'll get to you. And for the record, I'd like to just make it aware that Mr. Kelly and Mr. Webster are in attendance, in case that wasn't clarified earlier. Mr. Girl, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Terry, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Who is the final decision maker on whether or not Byron stays open or not?
Well, at the end of the day, it'll be, if there's legislation passed, it'll go to the CEO and the board of Exelon, right? But it's right now, you know, and I want everybody to understand, this is not just about Byron. I mean, it is because it's our area, right, that we're concentrating on Byron, but Dresden's in the same situation.
Mhm.
We made the announcement that both of those plants will close. And I will tell you the projections that we've heard from PJM market, it looks like maybe a portion of Braidwood and maybe even LaSalle will not clear that auction. So I guess financially, they've already made the determination that if they can't get any legislation, they'll close. So I would say that if we got some legislation that's being discussed and it kind of looks like it's heading in the right direction, maybe we could, you know, talk them into holding on to them for a little bit longer and give us some time. But the spring session ends May 31st. So the timing of this whole thing is, as you guys are probably very well aware of, lame duck session. We were hoping to get something passed. Nothing happened. Of course, we had the turnover and then a new speaker. And then they canceled basically February, right? I mean, they're having discussions and they're having some meetings and all that, but and then the governor's basically audit will happen. That's supposed to be back on April 1st. So we're really hoping. We presented this concept to the governor's office. We've been talking to legislators till we're about blue in the face. I'm just a regular union guy, but I've talked to more legislators than you can imagine. And I think they're very receptive once you kind of educate them on what's at stake, to be quite honest, because it's like I said, it can be a little bit complicated. But I think once we kind of explain it to them and break it down for them, that they understand exactly what a crucial resource they are. So.
Mr. Tassoni, this is Ms. Fellers.
Go ahead, Ms. Fellers.
Bert, did you have Mr. Girl, did you have another question? Oh, okay. So I did some quick math with 700 people using an average salary. From what I understand out there was around $65,000 a year plus benefits
Right.
with prevailing wage and primarily engineers and highly educated people. That's between 45 and $60 million a year just in lost payroll for our area. And when added to the $38 million in property taxes, we're looking at about $100 million loss in just payroll. And that's people's mortgages and going out to dinner. And these are jobs that allow people to be homeowners and participate in the economy. What happens to that workforce? Has your union discussed how to reemploy people in the event that it goes down? Is there a plan or a Hail Mary there? And then I think that's the only question that I have. I mean, that's an enormous amount. That's almost $9 million a month just in our area, and that's not during an outage. Oh, and I did have a question. Could you please explain for those of us who are lay people who don't necessarily understand nuclear energy? When I hear outage, to me, that means that my lights don't go on. What does outage mean in the nuclear when you're speaking about it? It sounds like a shutdown of some sort.
Yeah, they physically shut down one of the units. So there's 2 units there. That's what's unique about Byron as well. It's a 2-unit plant. So they stagger which one they're going to shut down, right? So they'll shut down unit 1 this year and they'll do unit 2. When they do that, they physically remove a portion of the fuel and then they have to put some new fuel in. So they unload the whole core. And I don't know the stats off the top of my head about how many different units are in each unit or each core in the core of the plant, but they have to remove a portion of it. They put some new ones in, and then they have to reassemble it or put it back into the core. Byron just did believe it or not, a world record 13-day outage. It's never happened before in the country. So they just got it back online. So you're right. Yeah, it doesn't mean your lights are going to go out, and they do that in the spring and the fall. So they'll start at LaSalle, and then they go to Dresden, then they go to Byron, then they go to Braidwood, and then they go to LaSalle. So they basically share resources of staff at every one of the plants. So yeah, it doesn't physically mean your lights are out. But there's a few other things that that people we're trying to convince or relate to the legislators is there's a significant amount of security around the plant. I don't know if you guys have ever drove by it or whatever, but that's another resource that the company is required to have by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the federal government that wind and solar and fossil doesn't require. They also have so many redundancies on pumps and generators, and you can only imagine because of what happened in Fukushima. The NRC said that all of these plants, every plant in the country has to have additional pumps, and they got a probably 100 by 100 building full of equipment in case there's a tsunami on the Rock River. Now I've lived here for 58 years, never seen one, but it's just that those are all added expenses to each plant that are required by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to have those. Again, that wind and solar and fossil are not required to have. So it's just added expense.
As a follow-up, what can we do to help you? What action can we take? What are the next steps so that we can help take care of our community and make sure that this funding stays in our community, that people stay employed, that this is about the last time, the worst time for us to have a shutdown like this or a loss of jobs like this. So what can we do? How can we support you?
Well, I appreciate, first of all, just give me an opportunity to speak to you all about this because there's a lot of rumblings and, I've heard are they really serious? Oh, they're just bluffing. Oh, they do this every year. Well, like I said, I've been there 36 years. To answer your other question, I don't think I did, to find jobs for these 700. We're actually finding jobs for 1,400 because of the other plant that's involved as well as Dresden. So we haven't hired for a while at all of the plants because we figured if they're going to shut that down, we're going to try, with retirements. We just didn't replace people that retired at the other plant. So these folks will physically have to move if they're going to stay within Exelon. We've had others that are leaving the state to go to other nuclear facilities to work. So these folks are such highly educated and trained, they have to stay in the nuclear industry for the most part, unless they're going to completely get out of it, which is kind of, rare. Electricians can go do electricians work and that, don't get me wrong. There's quite a few of those guys, but the nuclear station reactor operators, the equipment operators, the instrument maintenance guys, the radiation protection people, they physically leave the state. So, that's my deal. That's my huge thing. It's like, listen, we not only are we going to lose an asset, we're going to lose all these families that are going to leave the state. And it's happening. It's happening. We're having some of these younger folks say, hey, I can't take it anymore. 4 years ago, you all were talking about closing Quad and Clinton. Now you're talking about Byron and Dresden. it's just a matter of time before we don't have a nuclear facility here. So a lot of them are relocating to Georgia because they're building 2 nuclear facilities down there. So
I have a lot of constituents who work at the plant. I've had, I think at the last count, there were 17 that had reached out to me, which is an extraordinary number to reach out to a county board member. And
Sure.
they're all of them are young families, all of them. And so and a lot of them are former military. That's common too, correct?
Yeah, it is. It is. A lot of them, well, they have, if they, especially from the Navy that worked on anything to do with nuclear. I mean, it's security people. A lot of those are from the military. A lot of them are educated. Yeah. And we do that. They have a program that it's helmets to hard hats that we're involved in. So we do attract a lot of, former military people.
A lot of vets.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. And is there anybody else out there that maybe I can't see a hand or anything? If you want to add a question or comment, shout out. I see Mr. Kelly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I happened to work at the Byron Nuclear Plant back when I was young. I was a quality control inspector for the reinforcing steel and post-tension embedments in containment number 2 and took it all the way up.
Well, you did
My
a good job because it's still standing.
Yes, it is. And it will. I mean, that damn thing is impenetrable.
Yeah,
Can
you're right. It is.
guarantee it.
They say it'll take a 747. So, that your statement reminds me of some people think, well, is it safe? It's extremely safe. Absolutely, it's safe.
All right, Mr. McGoldrick, we appreciate you educating us on what's going on down there, and I'm sure many on this
Stasoni?
board. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say a couple words. All the mayors and village presidents, we got together last week. Tom McNamara created a letter that we all signed, fully supporting our legislators to work with the Exelon and work with our state legislators. So I will be forwarding that letter to the full county board tomorrow morning because we finally got all the signatures on. It's going to all our state legislators, again, giving full support for our legislators to work with Exelon to come up with the solution to keep the Byron nuclear plant open. So if you want to take any further action as a county board, I would highly recommend either making phone calls to our legislators or coming up with a resolution as far as the county board itself. Whatever we have to do, we need to do it. So I appreciate the speaker coming in tonight. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chairman.
Yes, and thank you. And like I say, I don't know where the resolution would come out of committee wise or if it came from the chairman's office, but if it came out of economic development and by means supporting legislation to help the process succeed, I'd be in favor of it myself.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak once more. In order for solar and wind to supply what nuclear does in Illinois, we'd have to pave over the entire state with wind and fans.
You're right. You're right.
All right.
It would
Thank
take
you.
8 million rooftops. It would take 8 million rooftops of solar to equal the output of what's happening at Byron. So, yeah, if I could just ask you guys, reach out to the legislators. I can tell you for sure that Senator Solomon's on board, Representative Vela, Representative Maurice West. I've had plenty of conversations with them. They're all 100% on board. The mayor's on board. Haven't, some of the other folks in the area haven't really, had anybody to, talk to, quite honestly, and we'll reach out to anybody and everybody. So if you guys have some friends in the legislation, if you could just reach out to them, give them my name, give them my number. I'd be certainly happy to talk to them or put them in touch with some other folks too that if they have any questions, we'd be happy to answer anything. So I can give you my name is Terry McGoldrick and my phone number is 815-378-7054.
All right. Thank you very much for your attendance, Mr.
Thank you.
Goldrick.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Anybody else got anything they wanted to mention or wrap up? We'll move on to legislation. All right. First item on the agenda, let me see here, where am I at? Okay. First item on the agenda would be a legislation. It's 21-002. It's a resolution authorizing the obligation retirement of bond payments from MFT funds. It's a cost of $1,450,000. This is an annual item, I believe, and I've asked Mr. Molina if he'd like to speak to it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Yes, this is something that we have to do every year, and that is so that we can use MFT funds to pay for the bonds. As you said, it's for $1,450,000, and if you recall, we actually pay close to $3 million every year for the bonds. And the other half, we use federal aid match to pay for the bonds. We have 2 more years to make this payment, so 2021 and 2022, and then we'll be done paying for these bonds that we've been paying since 2004, I believe. And again, it's required by the state so that we can use MFT funds.
Ms. Renee, just a little bit hesitant on this, but I would motion that item and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Girl. Sorry on that belated move there. Anybody got any questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, the motion is unanimously approved. Moving on to our next item. It's resolution 21-003. And it's a resolution authorizing the execution of a preliminary engineering services agreement with Chastain and Associates LLC to provide engineering services for an intersection design study for the improvement of Riverside Boulevard between Material Avenue and Sage Drive. It's in County Board Districts 17 and 20, and I would so move.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Webster. Mr. Molina, would you like to give us some detail on this?
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Yes, this is actually the beginning of phase 1 engineering for the Riverside project that we've been talking about for so long. What this will allow us to do is to determine what the scope of the work will be. It will tell us whether we need left turn lanes. Dual left turn lanes or a 6-lane road and things like that. The actual study is going to be at the intersections with Alpine and Forest Hills Road, and we're going to treat it as one. It will include traffic signal synchronization and all that. Now, again, this is just a study, a phase 1 engineering study, so that we can get going with this project. On a side note, we R1 PC will be looking again and for projects, and our project is one that to be considered. And again, this is a requirement so that we can use federal funds. You got to do all this preliminary engineering studies. It's not the entire phase 1. The entire phase 1 engineering will be in the neighborhood of, I want to say $1 million, just because this project, the construction project alone, it's in the $20 million range. And it does include the section of Riverside from Material Avenue, which where the railroad tracks are, all the way up to Sage Drive.
Yeah, and myself, I drove that stretch a few times lately, and yeah, it sure does need some attention. I don't know if it's how long it's gonna last, Anybody got any questions or comments on that item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed to that motion? Okay, the resolution is unanimously approved. Moving on to other matters. I see only under a report from myself, I would only, if it's not already in Mr. Molina.
Uh-oh,
Did we just lose?
we lost you. David. David. Your AOL. AWL. Oh,
Okay.
Carlos, do you
Okay.
know what
Chairman
date
to
we're gonna
Sony
report
is,
on?
oh, not
Well,
back yet.
in the meantime, can we see if Carlos has anything to add?
Yep,
Exactly.
I could do that. I have a couple of reports that I wanted to give you while we wait for
Thank
Mr. Tony.
Thank you.
The first thing is just to give you an update on winter operations. As you've experienced it, we've had a pretty busy 2021 so far. The guys have been out quite a bit since January 1st. They've been out 20 to 30 times on different types of call outs. We have used about close to 10,000 tons of salt already. And then we have used $64,000 in overtime, which is about 32% of the overtime that we've budgeted for the year. We have, going back to salt, we have ordered 17,000 tons of salt so far. And we have received 11,300. So we still got another 6,100 tons that we got yet to receive. And I'm hoping that will be enough to get us through the winter and then some.
Thanks. And in respect to the chain of command, I would ask Mr. Kelly to guide us through the rest of this, as he is the vice chair of this committee.
Somebody's trying to dial in. Maybe it's Dave.
Does Assistant Engineer Houdina have anything?
He's not he's on vacation in Florida, so
Okay, no problem. Does
That's not
anybody have anything else?
Mr. Kelly, I do have a couple of other things that I wanted to bring up. The next thing is actually Mr. McCarty got a call from Mark Peterson, who is the manager at Cherryvale Mall, and he was asking or bringing up to our attention a towing law that Winnebago County has had since for about 30 years now. Mr. Giliberti has also looked into this, and in a nutshell, and I'm just going to tell you what I know, and then I'm going to let Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Giliberti speak. But what I understand is that his concern, Mr. Peterson's concern, is that you have to have this big, huge signs that are not very welcoming to the users of the mall, and he doesn't understand why Winnebago County, was one of 5 counties in the state of Illinois that decided to adopt this law, and he was hoping and wondering if the county board can look into it again. There's other reasons why the law was adopted, but his biggest concern again is just that he doesn't think it's something that they should have in their mall, and because they don't have those signs, that means that if somebody abandons a vehicle in their private property, then that vehicle cannot be towed. You have to have a licensed towing company to be able to do that. That's what I know. So I'm going to let Mr. McCarthy or Mr. Giliberti add on to it.
Well, I'll just defer to Mr. Gilberti. John, maybe you could help us out with this.
Yes. Yeah. And I do know something about this because when I was a city attorney with the city of Rockford, we dealt with the ICC police various times, and they were very helpful all the time with towing issues. So Winnebago is one of 5 counties in Illinois to opt in to have the ICC police enforce and administer towing. That's not to say the local municipalities like the city of Rockford or other villages or cities in Winnebago, they have their own ordinances as well usually. But just to give you a little background, the county board did adopt, I'm not sure what year, it sounds about right, 30 years ago. So that was through via resolution. So it's up to the county board whether to opt in or out of having the ICC police administer. It's actually called the Commercial Relocation of Trespassing Vehicle Laws. And it does not affect vehicles parked on public streets, activities of towing companies who tow damaged or disabled vehicles, repossession of motor vehicles, or vehicles towed at the discretion or direction of police. So doesn't affect that. It just really affects private property. And you do have to be licensed by the ICC in Winnebago County and the 4 other counties in Illinois to tow from private property. Right now, there's just one towing company that the ICC has licensed in Winnebago to tow from private property. That's Maggio. And that's been the case for a while. There used to be more than one, but it's been some time, I think, that they've had just more than one. So the ICC sets the towing rates. They have a maximum rate that the towing companies can charge. They check criminal records and driving records of towing company employees before licenses are issued or renewed. They have a minimum level of insurance that the towing companies have to have. The current maximum rate in Winnebago of a tow is $216. They have their own administrative hearings in Chicago. They could come out here. They have authority to cite towing companies. Regarding the signage, I know that's Mark Peterson had the same question, the general manager Cherryville, a couple of years ago. We looked at this, our office did a couple of years ago. And at that time, the chief of the Civil Bureau, Dave Kurlinkus, I believe either talked to Mr. Peterson or sent a letter to him. But in any event, he was told, that there is a way to enforce it. The signage requirement is going to stay no matter what. I know Mr. Peterson doesn't like having these big signs out there, but even if you do away with the ICC having jurisdiction here in Winnebago, you still have to have signage anywhere on private lots in the county. So that won't go away. The signage won't go away. He is right, though, you do have to have a licensed company from the ICC list. They used to have a person 6-7 years ago. They used to have a person permanently stationed here, the ICC police in Rockford. But now they just come out here periodically, but they still do enforcement activities. And that's not the only thing they do. They also look at commercial trucking, and they have various other duties. That's just one. The relocation towing is just one of their duties. So this morning I did talk with someone from the ICC police, and we went over some things. They do have the ICC has a mileage requirement. It's 10 air miles or 15 miles, not air miles, but they do have a mileage requirement for the towing companies. They have their own forms. You can make complaints on their forms. They investigate the forms, and they will give money back to customers of the towing companies if there's a dispute. If the company agrees to that, the company has a right to go to a hearing in Chicago. That happened, I know, once or twice when I was with the city of Rockford. So that's kind of, but again, it's really up to the county board what they want to do. It's up to them. But the ICC police has been here for many years. But if I could answer any questions you have, I'd like to do that.
Well, who would pay for the towing? Let's say we get a hold of ICC, or the mall would call ICC. There's a car that's been in our parking lot for 2 days. Is that how it would happen?
Right. So, right. The rates again are regulated by the ICC. So they would tow the vehicle, and the person who owns the vehicle would have to pay the towing company to get their car back. And I know when we had problems in Rockford, the city of Rockford, we had a predatory company that, was located far outside of the city of Rockford. And that was always a problem for people to go pick up their cars, especially late at night. They had to go north of Rockford, and that was always a problem. But in any event, yeah, the individuals whose cars are towed, they pay the fee. And then sometimes there's disputes involved. And then the ICC actually on an invoice form that the towing company has to use if they're with the ICC in one of their counties, they have a form, and on the back of the form of the invoice, there is a complaint that the customer can make. So they have it pretty well regulated. There's, they said, minimum insurance requirements, but again, the city of Rockford, for example, has their own insurance requirements as well. Some is duplicative, but yeah, it's again, Kevin, that the person who's the owner of the car would have to pay the towing fee.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly? Yeah, what I wanted to add was, I do have a picture of one of those signs that that was sent to me, and I guess the rate right now that Maggio is charging is $170 for the tow, plus $40 per day for storage. Now, if you go and pick up your vehicle within 24 hours after it was towed, you don't have to pay for storage, only for the tow. And then there's other rates depending on the size of the vehicle.
Okay.
Folks, I'd just like to say apologies. My computer decided to restart itself just at that moment. But Mr. Kelly, if you're still out there and acting vice chair, if you'd like to continue on and take us home and close out the meeting, I'd be obliged.
Where'd he go?
Maybe he lost signal now.
There he is.
I got it.
And I'd just like to ask a question from the crowd here, because I've got pictures mostly all the time, but everybody will freeze and then they'll start video and then it'll freeze again. Am I the only one experiencing that, or other people experiencing that?
Because it's so cold, wall freezing.
It'll usually happen if I have a lot of windows open or a lot of tabs open on the internet. So when I'm in a Zoom, I close all my browsers except for the Zoom meeting, and sometimes that helps.
Well, I don't even know if I know what a browser is, but for the most part, everybody is froze. Like you were just froze the whole time you were speaking. I'm not seeing live video, so I'm assuming it's on my end. I don't know, but Mr. Kelly, if you're out there and you'd like to carry us on, please do so.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. I haven't had a problem. Does anybody have anything else?
I don't. I'd move to adjourn, David.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second by Ms. Fellers? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no one opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you all.